Yeah. So we know, and I'm recording this if that's okay. Does anyone have a problem with that? I think it'll be good to be able to refer to it later.
Works with me on my end.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, cool. And then it looks like Jennifer, you're aboard too. Welcome, welcome. In terms of getting going, I mean, we had originally thought of this as being something that had a loose format, and we also felt like we could learn a little bit from you in terms of you've hosted stuff like this before. We want to drive value for whoever's in it. So do you have any recommendations for what to do? I mean, do you feel like just one topic per call is smart, or what are your thoughts? Whoops. Is everybody there?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. And I can't hear Paul.
I muted myself.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you have, in terms of doing like hangouts and trying to talk about automation, do you have ideas for the best way to do it? Would you say that doing like one topic per call makes a lot of sense, or just free form, or what are your thoughts?
I think you have several options. You could definitely freeform it. In terms of topics, what were you thinking? Like an automation task in mind, and then thinking through that as a problem, or like a certain tool set as a topic. I guess you could do all of the above, but I guess I'm curious to hear what you had in mind a little bit more specifically.
Okay, cool. So like for me, I have a stupid little product that I'm selling, and I've automated as much as I can, but I run into like these weird little hiccups and hurdles in the middle of the process where I don't understand how to fill in a gap, right? And so I have my own specific automation challenges, but for the types of areas that we typically help people, like onboarding, it is an area where a lot of people can save a ton of time. For me, like I deal with a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, and getting clients on the phone. I know a lot of folks will have standing meetings, and it makes their life easy, but I'm dealing with people whose schedule is all over the place, so they have to have the flexibility. So I automate that outreach to get strategy calls, onboarding, offboarding, tracking of time, inside a tool called Teamwork, which some agencies use. They can't, managers complain about not having enough visibility into where their staff are as the month goes on to make sure that everybody's on track. Saying thanks for like payment reminders, getting people into review tools for small and medium-sized businesses, how to work with webhooks, how to work with Zapier, how to work with Integromat. I'd love to hear how people are automating the process of doing technical audits, how to plan monthly work based on automations, and then also reporting automations. And we lean pretty heavily on Data Studio to do that, but I'm really into the concept of learning how people are using natural language, if at all, to automate different pieces of the reporting. So those are like the areas that I want to learn more about. And I'm happy to share the stuff that we've come up with. And I figured it would be the kind of thing where people would share pieces of their stack in order to help other people run their businesses, and that no matter how smart anyone in the room is, there's always something to learn. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts? Any topics that we should add or remove, or ways of approaching it?
I think you have a solid foundation. I don't know that you want to overdo it.
Yeah.
You could start with any one of these. I'm happy to join that conversation, whether or not I have this particular expertise in automating these things or not. I think I'd happy to discuss them. And I don't know if you want to break down the way you have these conversations or not. You could sort of freeform it, see how it goes. If that doesn't go well, try to add a little bit more structure to it.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Are there any automation challenges that you're excited about tackling these days?
Um, yeah, I mean, my workflow is probably very different. Um, I sort of tackle automation problems as I see them.
Yeah.
Um, I'm, I do a lot of automation. I don't know that it's my sole focus or, something that, I'm trying to necessarily do more of. It's things that sort of just fall into my lap and I decide to automate them.
Yeah.
So nothing comes to mind.
Okay, cool. Well, is there any of these things that you would want to, and Jennifer, is your mic on? Can you hear us? We'll see if she jumps in. I wanted to, can I show you what I'm running into and see if you have any thoughts about how to fix that automation?
Sure.
Okay, sweet. So I have a tool called Real. So there's all kinds of great ways of capturing reviews, right? One tool that a lot of small businesses rely on is Listen 360. It's a competitor of GatherUp. Up until now, they haven't had a really good widget to put on people's websites. And so we built one that pushes schema data and everything through. It works a lot like GatherUp, which is obviously like a better tool. But so I have this silly little sign up process. People pick how many store locations they have, whether or not they want us to install it on different pieces of their website. They go through a charge B sign up, they pay, and then I'm not like a fantastic database guy. So for me, it was like, okay, well, I can do almost all of this with I could do all of this with Zapier. And what I ended up doing was, sorry, give me a second. I have all the data going into a Google Sheet, and then from there, there's some manual pieces to it, which I would love to have work a lot smoother. Big surprise. Where are you? Kidoki. And you're gonna think that my zaps are a total show. Okay, cool. So when they jump in, it's pretty standard fare. I'm using Zapier to power the automation, and so when they subscribe, it only filters through if they're choosing a specific product. Zapier then builds out a Google Sheet specifically for them, puts it in a specific folder, makes the file editable, creates a row in my master client sheet. It then sends them an email with that file attached so that they can fill it out. Here's where my gap is. I don't have a way of knowing when they filled it out, because this is a custom ID for that specific sheet, and I can't listen to a custom value inside Zapier. I don't understand how to do that. Have you ever had to deal with anything like that?
Mm. No, I use very little Zapier. I've used it before. Nothing quite this sophisticated.
And you're
Um,
like, no, I just do APIs, dog.
I mean, that's how I would do it, but doesn't mean that I can't think through the problem.
Yeah.
So it sends a link to the Google Sheet,
Yeah.
which is editable.
Yep. It looks kind of like this. It gives them like a pretty standard thing. It sends them a link. It gives them kind of like instructions for how to fill it out, etc. And then once they fill it out, if they send me an email, it's no big deal. I can then I have another automation which works pretty slick after that, which is part 2. Hey, welcome aboard. So when an updated row in my master sheet happens, it's filtering again. It grabs their business name, street, city, state, country, text, and it sends an onboarding email, which Jordan helped me think through. And I get something like this where it has all kinds of get information in the URL. And then when I click on it, I don't know if that's going to work because I wasn't logged in. Then it will pre-fill out my onboarding script. And all I have to do is the bike shop and choose the structured data for store. When I click save here, it pushes my config file for that particular client up onto the server, and then they're ready to go. I will have kind of built everything out, but I'm not currently notified when they're done with that sheet.
Right.
And
So let's look at how that sheet works. So everyone is given a common template, right?
yeah, I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
And I'm probably being dumb. Like I probably should have done this with Jordan. Am I hijacking this? Is this okay?
Go for it, man.
Okay. I don't want to be that guy, but I guess I am intrinsically. Okay, cool. Clients, reviews. And these are all like test ones, right? I was just trying to think through the problem. They'll get a sheet that looks like this that has this kind of information filled out. And then when this is set to 1 or done, whatever I want to set it to as like the trigger, then that second automation happens and I get slacked that notification.
All right. So without knowing, the ins and outs of Zapier and what's available to you within that platform,
yep.
I think it's quite possible that you can add that notification functionality within the Google Sheet template through scripting.
Yeah, you should. Hi, it's Lee.
Hey, Lee.
How you doing?
Awesome. Welcome aboard. Is this
Thanks.
The man, the myth, the legend?
Yeah, all of the above. I do a little bit of this type of work, not with Zapier, but Google Forms and such.
Yeah.
You may want to check out. We use Formule. It's a free tool that connects right into your Google Sheets.
Yeah.
And I usually use it with Google Forms.
Yeah.
But I believe it triggers on row update or row entry, and you can format the email to send out based on what the values are in the row.
Okay. And the reason I didn't do a Google Sheet solution, a Google Forms solution up front was that I was envisioning, like when you're dealing with reviews, you're oftentimes dealing with a company that might have multiple locations. And so it made sense for me to be able to have them easily fill it out. I don't know. I'll look into that though. And is it okay if I ask?
I don't know if you need forms to trigger Formule, or if you can just use Formule. So it's an add-on.
Yeah.
And it's a free Sheets app. You just install it, and it may work even without the form entry. It may just run off the trigger. I'm not positive.
Okay.
But there are a couple tools that should do that. I've done it a couple different ways.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll try that. That's pretty cool. So will it work on so how do you trigger an add-on on a sheet that's kind of like automatically created and that you haven't even created?
Oh, that's a good question, because you're creating the sheet instead of updating it?
Yeah.
A little bit late, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So Zapier builds the Google Sheet, puts it in the
Okay.
drive folder, gets moved around, and permissions get changed so that people can edit it.
So you're creating a new one basically for each
Yeah.
customer.
Yeah.
That one I don't have sorry, I got in a little bit late there.
No problem. Well,
I
That one
misunderstood that too.
I'm not positive on that.
yeah. Cool.
It may be if you're, I was just thinking, unless you can possibly copy a template or something instead of creating a new one.
Mm-hmm.
So
Cool.
you'd have that one.
So it's like trying to find a script or an action that will allow me. Ooh, somebody's chatting. That will enable me to. Here's what I'm thinking. Developers, Google. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm sending emails from a spreadsheet. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll check that out. That looks really good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome
Whoa,
to App
you know,
Street
sorry
Video
about
Tutorial.
that. I'm such a tool. Okay, cool. Yeah, that I'm gonna bookmark that and come back to it. Who's got a cool automation that they're working on that they want to share? So that I'm not hijacking this.
What I would love to know, it's Jordan here, is Paul, you talk a lot about using, I think it's KNIME or KNIME, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that properly, to automate a lot of your workflow. And I believe you talk a lot about keyword research. I was wondering, what was your process for going to KNIME versus, say, Google Sheets or serverless structures such as Lambda? I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts and pick your brain about that.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. It's NIME, by the way.
Okay.
So you're at the first time. So I would not say that I'm an exclusive NIME user. I may even use Python more often than NIME, but my agency does use NIME quite a bit. And the reason that we use NIME quite a bit is one, we've built some backend infrastructure around it. But two, due to the sort of like drag and drop nature of it, it really enables some really good automation development that can come from our SEO practitioners or our paid search practitioners rather than the set of developers that we have on staff. It's just a little bit more intuitive, just like Zapier is a little bit more intuitive than writing like a Python script, and it's extremely sophisticated. We can really do anything we want with it. So that was sort of the idea there. And it's worked really well for us. I think it's a pretty accessible platform.
Interesting. Yeah, because from my understanding, they have the free desktop version, and then they go into paid plans if you go in the cloud, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so we're using the free version in the cloud. We built a custom backend for it where we like pipe in scripts and they run on schedulers.
Okay. So are you using that for like data crunching in terms of like keyword research, or on the like deliverable side, or more on like the internal optimization point?
Yeah, no, we're using it for all sorts of things. So it's doing quite a bit of data crunching. It's doing data ingestion. It's creating client deliverables. It's a power horse. We're using it for a lot of things.
Cool. Very cool.
Are you happy with how the reports look?
Yeah, love them.
Okay, because I had noticed that they looked a little like some of the example ones did not look super pretty.
Oh, I may be using shitty screenshots, but like 90% of our actual client deliverables are just the front end is Tableau, which is being distributed from like our data warehouses. So they look as good as like any other Tableau dashboard.
Got it. Okay.
I have some visuals in my decks that are a little bit old, really, so I don't have to use real client deliverables in them.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's a good segue into like Tableau versus, say, Google Data Studio what are your thoughts on that? I know Lee is a big advocate and ninja on GDS.
Yeah, I mean,
that was centered to you. Sorry.
yeah, no, it's fine. We have a big deal with Tableau, so we have that license pretty available to our staff. So we use Tableau. It's a little bit more flexible than GDS. GDS is fine. It's free. To get all the data in there, you have to hack it a little bit. You might have to load data through some other systems, but it's totally fine. It does quite a bit.
Interesting. So where do you see that breaking point being from, say, GDS to Tableau?
Tableau is a little bit more sophisticated, and it allows for ingestion of more data. There's things I also like about GDS more. I think like just being the method in which Google Data Studio dashboards are shareable, I think is just generally better. And
Cool.
it's a free product for the most part.
Cool. Noah, any thoughts?
I just haven't done a ton with Tableau at all. I was really stoked on how Google Data Studio was free, before you start thinking about connectors. And as I started to build out my agency, I thought that I'd have a need down the road to have 100 different reports and 100 different clients and hundreds of clients and whatever. And I love the fact that Data Studio wasn't going to charge me by either the data source or the client. And there are definitely gotchas along the way. And Lee, you could talk all about the gotchas. Whether it's trying to work out how blends will or will not work. The restrictions around joins, date formatting, stuff like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, in my mind, it's a great tool. It's free. It lowers the bar of entry. It allows you to, do proof of concept sort of things and get things going on a low budget. But to me, it's almost still in beta, especially the advanced functions.
Yep.
I think you're looking more at, a lot more work on the back end to get your data in shape in a format that's ingestible into Data Studio, where you have more options with something like Tableau, but you've got a bigger investment in Tableau, so you need some people who know how to run it. And I'm not one of those people. If I ever have time, I'll be going through the Tableau stuff too. But it's definitely a notch above generating sheets and charts in spreadsheets.
100%.
So it's moving in the right direction. If I certainly wouldn't be against Tableau in a lot of situations if you've got enough manpower or horsepower.
So have you used anything crazy where you were looking at taking data out of sheets and then putting it into a different data source somehow, using extract, something like that?
Yeah, on my day job we use Click.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of Data Studio is kind of our guerrilla methodology, and officially we try to move things to the Click platform.
Yep. So
one of the ideas there is so my day job is a large industrial company, and it has a parent company that has a bunch of other industrial companies. So we got all sorts of engineers and business people and stuff running around, salespeople doing stuff. My goal is to try to move them to Data Studio, these side projects, and then funnel things that make sense into ClickView, because that's kind of the official platform, and we actually have more reporting support for that. And I've done something. I haven't really gone directly out of Data Studio, like export automatic export or something out of Data Studio. It's an interesting idea, though, using that as a kind of an ETL tool to restrict some of the data, but I'm sure there's easier ways to do that.
Mm. Let's see. So we had a couple of different ones. Onboarding. Does anyone want to see an onboarding flow, or anyone want to see time tracking, or does anyone have anything to share other than me? I only have this stuff because I wanted to make sure we had something to talk about. And I can share a screen. You guys just have to, I think you just click the share button and you can take over, and we don't have to look at my stuff.
I mean, I'm somewhat restricted in, I think, what I can show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think if I have.
Let's see what I can.
So I got one right here. Give me a quick second while I pull it up. You guys and girls may find this interesting.
Cool. And then can you just take over? Do you hit the share button?
Let me attempt to, and hopefully I won't break anything.
Cool.
Share. Can you stop sharing, Noah?
Yeah, sure. There we go.
All right. So let me share my desktop. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Sweet. So what I've done is, one of the issues that we kind of keep running into is how do we identify up and coming keywords? So keywords where it doesn't necessarily have enough data to report from Ahrefs or from SEMrush or any of those typical traditional keyword tools. So what we ended up doing is using GSC data and calculating the growth rate over 3 months to identify keywords that are up and coming within a client's ranking. So you can see here that I'm pulling search query and landing page data for one of my clients, and then pulling clicks and impressions over the past 3 months. So what I end up doing is using impressions, like calculating the change from month 1 to month 2, and then month 2 to month 3 in this data processing sheet, which has this nice long formula here. And then what I end up doing is using a query function based on the thresholds that I set. So as an example, I have a minimum threshold of 100% growth, and within the last month, it has to have at least 25 impressions. So what I'm able to do now is identify these keywords that have grown by a certain percentage. In my case, it's by a minimum of 100%. And then use this data to either add it to the page or further add content to the page targeting this keyword, or spin off additional pages that do target it if it's not related enough to the current page that's ranking. So that's kind of my share. Love to hear everyone's thoughts.
I think it's killer.
It's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I don't know if I wrote a blog post a bajillion years ago about identifying growth opportunities for keywords using Google Trends.
Oh,
it's a little bit antiquated now.
I think I read that a while back. You calculate the slope of change, correct?
Yeah. So you looked, you basically averaged out years, and then you calculated slope to determine if it's it's a positive slope or a negative slope, essentially. It's totally antiquated now, and I don't ever recommend working with the unofficial Google Trends API. But someone just informed me, like last week, I didn't even know this existed, but Google Keyword Planner will now give you more than 12 months of search volume data. Something on my agenda as of this week is to actually do actual modeling on that.
That's interesting. What's everyone's go-to API stack? Hold on, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here.
There was just on that. I know there was a lot of discussion on Twitter recently about APIs for Google Trends.
I missed that.
What's that?
I missed that if there was.
Yeah. I would just do a little quick Twitter search for Google Trends, or you can go to the Google Data Studio Resource Finder. And
nice little plug there.
Twitter feed, since I filter all those out already. Yeah, there was a lot of talk about no one had a really good connector for it, but someone had just built one, I believe, and they were testing it out.
Yeah, so I'd only ever used one in Python, and these and we have another one that we built internally, but it tends to break just because it's not a real API.
Yeah, that was kind of what was going on in that conversation, but there were 2 or 3 people who had been working on that from different directions, I believe. So there may be some updates on that. You may want to.
Yeah, I'm gonna search right now.
Check that out.
I have a challenge that Jordan and I have been thinking about, and I feel like I'm asking a dumb question, but I'm going to do it anyway. I want to drive client performance, right? So let's say in March, I optimize a specific page, which in analytics, you can kind of set a custom, you could set an annotation. How do you show in Data Studio or in a tool like that, where you can see like an annotation for a date that you make an optimization, and then see timeline results after the fact of what's happening either in the SERPs or even engagement metrics on page? And I understand how to join data between analytics and Google Search Console, but I haven't been able to marry that with a time date stamp of when we optimize something so that we can use it both for monitoring and reporting. Do you have any thoughts on that, Paul or Lee? I know we've talked scattershot before, and that D3 visualization that they have in the developer shared tools was kind of exactly what I was thinking, but I didn't know if you guys, like, basically we need to show our ROI, right, to clients. And when I talk to other SEO agencies, a lot of times they just lean on, well, how much would this traffic cost if it was PPC traffic? And that doesn't really cut it for me. And maybe I'm being lame and thinking that way, but I want to be convinced otherwise, I guess.
Well, I think that's only one way of showing that data. And I certainly use like average CPC as a proxy sometimes, but it's better to use like actual conversion data. So you know how much, like a product or something is worth, what your average order value is there, what your conversion rate is there, what sort of volume you can expect, and you can sort of calculate a better prediction that way from organic rather than relying on the CPC value. Although I'm not really certain what the solution you were talking about was.
Well, how do you like to show improvement in performance after you optimize content? I guess that's a really simpler, a much easier way of asking the question.
I mean, perhaps I'm missing something. It's it's before and after performance.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're talking about segmenting out those things that you've updated somehow. Let me share.
Yeah.
So, now that blending's come along, it's gone a long way, and I haven't. I was working with Search Console quite a bit, and I'll see if I can share stuff here. Share. Let me share screen 2. Share. Nobody's working for industrial sealing companies, are they?
Nope.
Excellent. Okay. So that was one of my questions a while ago was, okay, I'm doing some SEO stuff and it's hard enough getting people to do it, but I wanted to see what my differences were. And as you all know, I'm using Data Studio stuff primarily. So I saw that as an opportunity to try a few things. Very similar to marking queries as brand and non-brand. I had created a custom dimension. In this case, I had created just a simple one, which was a meta update, where I did a bunch of pages for meta updates. And this was kind of an 80-20 type of thing. I found the top 10 pages to go play with and that generate the most traffic, and do some comparisons between those. So this is also one of the things that when I have some time, this is one of the things I was thinking about as far as annotations as well. Mm-hmm. Being able to create a custom dimension and basically, in this case, I'm tagging pages that have been updated. And I believe you could tag those with a date as well. So you could say, oh yeah, here's all the stuff that's been updated since this date. It's based on, in this case, pages, however, since that's kind of the fundamental unit that we're updating. You could do it for other stuff. I had a couple pages on here. So this was just basically, and it's primarily for my use. Hang on, my dog's dreaming. Okay, he's making funny noises.
And mine's waiting for the walk.
Yeah, he's walking himself in his dreams. So you can see here I've got it just kind of segmented out between where I did the meta update on some of the pages and not. So we can just kind of see some basic stats as far as whether, well, you can see the difference in traffic and such between those. And those 10 pages make up a huge amount of traffic, which is quite often true in a lot of our sites. You can see page count, no, 877, yes, that were updated 10, but the entrances for yes outnumber the number of no's. So generally when I'm working on stuff like that, I have a limited amount of time, so I try to go for these 80-20 type of wins or experiments. So this does allow you to go through and select different updates. What I would probably do with this is, instead of just a meta update, yes and no, I mean, that's a fairly simple.
How did you segment them? How did you segment the pages into a yes or a no?
Right, that's what I'll show you here.
Oh, okay, you rock.
Yep. So that was the SEO update or meta update. Let's see. So basically, if the page is one of these pages, then yep, it's been updated.
Oh, okay. So you're hard coding it in. Okay.
Yes, in that case I am. This was done, oh gosh, I started this like a year ago.
Sure.
So it was way, way before blends became available.
Yep.
Now what I would probably do is start looking at just putting these on a Google Sheet.
Sure.
And then also connecting those to, you got a little bit of a problem because of the difference in URL formulation between analytics and
sure,
Search Console. So you got to do some business there too. Obviously, if you're working in Sheets, you shouldn't have too much of a problem.
Sure.
But I think you could use the same idea. Just set yourself a dimension on your sheet for the update name and the update date. Right?
Cool. Yeah.
And the other thing I was looking at, I don't know, me see if I can find this one.
Blending, I assume, is just like a join.
Yeah, it's a left outer join.
Okay.
So unfortunately, that's what you're limited to. So you have to be really careful. I've seen a lot of people mess it up, especially because they think they're getting all the stuff and they're not, or they're multiplying their join accidentally because they're not specific enough on the join keys.
Sure. Yeah.
So it can be kind of tricky there. Let me see what I got here. I was working on annotation.
I was laughing because I bug Lee with questions when I break my joint.
Don't feel alone. That's kind of my job these days. I'm a karma oriented enterprise. I'm gonna have to do. Oh, I know how to do this. Sorry, I'm on my work computer, so it makes everything trickier. Just have to go to Firefox. Let's see. So I was working on a couple ideas for this, kind of starting with that because I had done some of that in the past and people have been asking about annotation. I started annotating from a simple sheet, just kind of like Google Analytics, where you can put in a little entry for a date.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that sort of thing for quite a while on the Data Studio Resource Finder and in other places. When I'm actually working on someone's website, I have entries in a spreadsheet. So when you're looking at a certain period of time, it can pull up those entries and tell them what they were supposed to do or what actions were taken. So simple form of annotation. Now you could just plug you could plug a form right in, a Google form right into your sheet now. So you could basically enter those, right? So you could do time, date, blah, 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 and it would just post it right to the sheet. So this was just a quick test case here, being able to segment out time on the chart. Of course, we have no updates there. I was using a bubble chart to basically try to identify changes that were made in that other part. Clear that.
I missed a second. Is that an embed, or is that a chart type that we can actually edit? Is that a
no? Chart, so
everything's
I've got you got it. I got a sheet that basically has my stuff, and this is just kind of surfacing this up.
Yeah.
I have some type here, which I just put a couple things on.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, hey, I can just make a cool little bubble chart out of this and put it at the bottom of my sheet. Unfortunately, bubble charts aren't really set up to do dates very well.
Right.
So what I really wanted was a bubble chart, but that I could scale along with whatever time frame I had.
Sure.
And when I have some time, I may work on that, so that the date range and the bubble chart range match based on number of days.
Sure.
Kind of what I did here. So what I had to do in this case was have a start date, though, for my annotations.
Oh.
And then we've got annotations. Okay, here's the first change. Here's the second change, third change, fourth change, and such. So that's one way to do it. It's a little bit clunky at this point, needs some work.
This is what I was telling. How do you say her name? Is it Yulan? This was what I was asking for as a new chart.
Yeah, I saw that, and that was, I don't know where you got that example from, but it's awesome.
I mean, it seems like this is so useful, and you could have the same data source as the bubble chart on the top as the data in the line chart. And
exactly.
It would make sense.
Exactly. The only thing so it's like if I was going to change something in Data Studio, it would be the bubble chart, allow it to take date on the x-axis.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's what I meant.
Take care of everything.
Yeah.
Right. The other option, and I like that because the bubbles you can put more information in the bubbles, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of takes care of pretty much everything. In the lack of that, I'm kind of working out ways to say, okay, here's my date range. What's my minimum date and my maximum date?
Mm-hmm.
Figure the number of days and then scale this chart to the same number of days.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of hacking involved in that, I think, but it's possible.
And it can't just filter out the stuff that's in the range. Like, that's why the new chart type makes a ton of sense. So you could use a standard date range and it'll filter the events.
Yeah. That's where I'm like, oh, if I can take the date range, calculate the number of days, start day 0 here, and then go up here, fine. Other hacks that you might be able to do there actually would be similar to this. Use a date range or generate a date range off of this, but instead of a bubble chart, change it to a bar chart, and then throw it behind this other chart.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it'll show up there.
Mm-hmm.
The spikes when you have an actual entry.
Mm-hmm.
I might. Sorry, I shouldn't play here, but that just kind of came to me that you'd be able to do that. The only problem with that is the bubble charts are really nice because they allow you to put in all those extra dimensions.
Mm-hmm. Jordan, do you want to mention context?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if anyone has seen this, and I just sent it in the group chat, but the guys over at Context are working on a programmatic way to push annotations to GA. And I know that they're working on an integration with Google Data Studio. So you could, in theory, have a G Sheet and just push all that data to Context, and you'll be able to see it within GA, within Google Data Studio, and it integrates with the actual date ranges that you have set within the dashboard or view that you're viewing.
Well, could you do that right now? I mean, could you programmatically throw in, using the GA interface, could you programmatically throw in stuff into a particular dimension?
From my understanding, like annotation wise, they don't have that API publicly accessible.
No, yeah, but could you just use a separate dimension for it?
You could.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying. In other words, integrate the current annotation API and then push that in. That's
Jordan, do you want to show what they look like inside of GA?
Yeah, let me pull up an example.
I've never seen any sort of API around annotations.
Yeah, this isn't like an official API integration. This is driven through a Chrome extension right now.
No. I follow.
Okay.
I'm just adding color.
Paul, have you seen us yet?
Not yet. It's on the agenda.
I figured.
I'm in the middle of a big move because I have twins on the way.
Oh my God.
So my weekends and evenings are a bit stacked, to say the least.
Are they your first?
Yes, my first.
Wow. So a friend of mine has twins, and my understanding is it's basically 8x the work of one. It's not like 2x or 3x. It's like 4 to 8x. I'm not sure which, but it's a ton.
That's what I'm expecting.
Yeah.
So I have it pulled up here.
Cool.
Let me close this. So as I mentioned, this is driven by a Chrome extension, which you can see here. So at this point in time, it includes all confirmed and unconfirmed Google algorithm updates, along with any holidays for various countries that you want to track or that you're competing in. So I'll turn off the US for the sake of the demo. And you can actually see here, each of these are annotations. And if you click one, you'll see, okay, on the 14th of January, there was an algorithm update. And then if you click details, you can actually dive in deeper into the annotation and then even deeper into, say, the article here. So these ones are all generated by the Chrome extension and by the team over at Context, but you can start adding your own. I think if you scroll down, no, I don't have it yet, but you can start adding your own, whether it's directly through their API or uploading it through CSV.
Cool.
So I could see how we could do kind of a hacky workaround. I haven't tried embedding Google Analytics charts yet. Have you done that, Lee, where we just grab the table somehow?
Just grab the table
or the chart. Is that even possible?
From
GA into Data Studio as an embed?
GA into Data Studio as an embed. I don't know.
One thing, as you're thinking about that, we were at a meetup last week and I was talking with another agency head. We were trying to come to grips with like, what's the best report? And I know the answer is always, it depends, but we looked at a lot of things that different people were doing that were kind of interesting. And one of them was using Google Docs. So you're programmatically generating your insights into Google Docs for each client each month so that it's formatted in a way that's got nicer typography than what you can typically do inside Data Studio.
Yeah.
And I like that. And then the other thing that they're doing is creating like an insights video that might be 1 to 3 minutes per client.
Yeah.
And they're sharing one of those per client per month. And so that one page in the report, the left-hand side might be the insights. You know, it's like 5 to 10 different bullet points. And then the right side is the video embed. And I thought that was kind of cool. Saves a little bit of time before the meeting, and it allows you to deal with, you get your client focused, and then you get them in a place where they're going to ask you good questions. And I don't have pictures to share that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I like that. I was kind of thinking about something like that. Even obviously like embedding stuff, you know, right in my reports. I have used stuff like we're a Google shop at work, so we have all these internal Google sites. That makes it very handy to embed all sorts of stuff around either a report or, you know, you can format the page any way you want, but not necessarily programmatically. I think you're onto something there as far as.
He's the guy I was talking about. He's way more advanced in terms of doing app scripting than I am. And I don't think it's super hard, but he was, you know, they do a ton in their agency. Do you guys want to see my stupid little onboarding automation?
Yeah, sure.
It's kind of simple. Client fills out a Google form, which then goes to a Google sheet. It also gives them all the stuff that they need to do to add us to whatever site platform that they have. It has all the different types of platforms we work on. Whoa, hey now. And then it also gives them directions for how to give us access to all the different data sources that we'll need so that we don't have to hold their hand, at least at the beginning stages of the call, right? And then all that data goes to a Google Sheet. I then go build out their dashboard and add that to the Google Sheet, and then mark the client live. And at that point, their data goes from the Google Sheet to QuickBooks. It then makes a new project inside Teamwork. And it also makes, these are all the steps, I think. Makes a new customer in QuickBooks, makes a company in Teamwork, makes a client, makes a project, creates a task list, makes a drive folder, finds the data from their sheet, from the overall client sheet, updates the row to make it live, adds them.
No, I don't. Do you think you were sharing?
Oh shit! I'm such a dummy. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for being understanding. They're like, whoa, dumbass. Okay, here, hold on a second. I hate these Zoom things. They're always in the way. Cool. So this is my, I send them a link to my onboarding page, right? This is hidden. Yeah. It's not in my robot. I mean, it's not in my sitemap, whatever. They fill out the Google form. They can see all the instructions for adding us to whatever type of website they have. These are all the platforms that we typically work on. Gives them directions for adding us to GMB, GA, Google Search Console, Facebook, whatever. And then once they fill it out, it goes into an onboarding document. And then after that, these are all the steps that happen. Creates a QuickBooks customer, makes a company in Teamwork. Then it creates them as a person in Teamwork, builds a project, adds a task list, makes a drive folder. It does some stuff in that Google Sheet, adds them into my SEO client list inside MailChimp, makes a private channel form in Slack. Do you guys do that, by the way? Have private channels for clients? Probably depends, but
no.
Then lets me know that it's ready. It sends a hello to them, and it also adds them to Proposify. And the reason I have that last step is sometimes I have what I call land and expand mini projects where I might just install Google Analytics in a good way on their site for $100. And then I might install an e-commerce abandonment tool that we build. And once they generate a couple grand in revenue with that tool, all of a sudden they're all stoked to do digital marketing with us. And so I'll already have them inside Proposify to build out, a monthly retainer thing. That's one I can share. Anyone else have something they want to share?
I think we're at the hour.
We're at our hour, right?
Yep.
Guys, I think you all are connected with me on either Twitter or on Reddit. Please give feedback so we can make this really useful for people so that they're super stoked to jump in and take part. I don't want to drive the bus. I just wanted to make sure that there was someone who would MC the first one, as it were. But if you have feedback, please send it my way or Jordan's way. We're really glad that you all came. And if you have questions, thoughts, feedback, please send it along. And Paul, congrats. That's really exciting. When's the due date?
End of May.
Oh, you still have time. Thank God.
Barely.
Phil and Ted's rock, by the way, if you're looking for a stroller. Navigating Boston, the streets are, depending on where you live in the city, I mean, they can be super narrow. And the Phil and Ted's is really baller. It'll allow you to do 2 kids at once and not be too wide.
Nice, we'll take a look.
And it's easy to get in and out of the car too, which I thought was really important in a double stroller when we had our 2 little ones.
Cool.
Cool.
I'll take a look. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Yeah. Hey, I got to talk to you sometime about your thing.
Yeah.
I'm on there for a minute.
Yeah, I'll stay on.
Yeah, or everybody stay on. So I've got an unusual situation at work.
Yeah.
Where I've kind of convinced them that for us as a manufacturer,
Mm-hmm.
we have to work with our distributors more and their properties.
Should I stop the recording?
You can.